Joining us right now is Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. And, I mean, judge this Supreme Court ruling, Tom, based on the unhinged, over-the-top, maniacal reaction of the left. And you know exactly what's going on here, right?
Yeah, in this case, it's this strange inverse relationship. The more straightforward and common sense the approach, the more crazy the left gets. It says more about the court's the left than the court's decision, which is unsurprising to virtually anyone who's been following the court and understands the constitutional challenges the court dealt with here.
Yeah. Do you think that this is just because of Sonia Sotomayor's dissent, how over the top it was? It sounded like Joy Reid wrote it. And it is incredibly irresponsible because that's what people seem to be pivoting off of for their unhinged reaction.
She makes a few fair points that, deserve some attention, but it begins and ends with these attacks on Trump. Mm-hmm. And it shows you that this isn't about what the Supreme Court did. It's about the election. It's about President Trump, and they don't care about the Constitution here. We've seen that time and time again. It's they want to blow up anything that gets in their way of their pursuit of power. Trump, the Constitution, and the Supreme Court. And to have them, hypothetically, theoretically, talk about Biden killing his enemies, murdering people, and Supreme Court justices. I can't think of anything comparable in the modern era to it. I just can't.
The hyperbole is really off the charts, Tom, but it's not just the presidential immunity case. We also had Fisher and Chevron. There's been similar hyperbole about all of these cases. I mean, I worry a little bit about the security of these SCOTUS justices, especially when Sotomayor is making these charges. Are you worried about their security? Do you think they have enough security?
No, I don't think they have enough security. Kavanaugh was nearly murdered, he and his family. So it's not like it's a theoretical or hypothetical issue. I'm sure the justices think they have more than enough security, and they're probably happy with the marshals, but this is Washington, and their government agencies just like anyone else, the Marshal Service or the Secret Service or agencies like that. And, it's the government. So you can be sure there's always more to be done.
Tom Fitton's our guest, president of Judicial Watch. I'd love to sort of zoom out a little bit on this decision because, Tom, one of the great things you do at Judicial Watch is hold our elected leaders accountable. Because of your great work through FOIA requests and other investigations and lawsuits, we've been able to learn a lot about what our elected officials do. Some of it, I believe, is criminal behavior. When Barack Obama authorized the investigation of his successor, gave a rubber stamp on James Comey and the FBI and the CIA to go ahead and secretly investigate Donald Trump days before he assumed the presidency, I would argue that that was a borderline treasonous act, if not an illegal act. This ruling, though, I guess gives him immunity from that official act. I mean, from your perspective, could this actually end up harming your work, your efforts in investigating what our presidents and our other elected officials do?
Well, we always understood it would be challenging under the law to challenge a president over his official acts. Certainly the White House isn't subject to FOIA directly, for instance. Even when you're suing just a regular government official, for all these immunity claims in the civil context you have to overcome in order to hold the official personally accountable. Because the presumption is, or there's this analysis, is that the government is the one that's responsible, not the individual, when it comes to official activity. So a lot of it isn't surprising. So, the court's interpreting 250 years now of our nation's law, and in the case of the presidential immunity issues, these are decisions that go back to the Nixon era. I don't understand what people are upset. Well, I do understand what people are upset about. And this is why your listeners should go read the opinion. They'll see that it was relatively straightforward.
Yeah.
Chief Justice Roberts said the president is above the law. Obviously, for unofficial acts, he can be subject to prosecution, but for official acts, generally speaking, he's not. There may be circumstances where there's a question whether an act is official or unofficial, and that might be subject to some type of adjudication.
Yeah.
I don't see how that's controversial at all.
It isn't.
And indeed, Sotomayor kind of suggests that it isn't.
Yeah, it isn't. Tom, the reason they're upset is because this is one of their most powerful weapons for the election. This is about the election and only the election. And that's why they're upset, because now they're going to have to actually try to win votes based on policy, personality, and the character of their and mental capabilities of their candidate, rather than just sicking the criminal justice system on their political opponent as they have.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the debate had gone better if they'd be so crazy right now.
Yeah, right.
And I think that Biden wins a little bit here, as we were pointing out, that he can't be jailed for enabling the worst human trafficking operation in the history of mankind. But on the other hand, they thought, well, Biden's got these issues. We were relying in part on helping him through this jailing of Trump and prosecuting Trump through these various criminal cases. And now that's largely off the table. And so now they're even a bit more unhinged, because the problem with Biden has become magnified in terms of his cognitive challenges.
Yeah, but the good news is that his family members can still be prosecuted for selling access to the office of the vice president and for the overall racketeering operation that they've been engaged in for the last decade.
Well, he can be too, and he certainly can also be prosecuted for stealing documents as senator.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Especially since we're told he's perfectly mentally capable and has a great memory and great. I mean, Robert Hur needs to sort of reverse that decision now. Thank you, Tom. Always good to talk to you. Always love your work at
welcome.
Judicial Watch. That would be Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch. Big fan of his.